Can you give us a little perspective broadly? Your work in DC versus what you see in the States. Where does the opportunity exist for people in the state versus what's going on nationally?
Well, all of the opportunity exists in the real Washington, which is Washington State. It's a virtual dead zone in Washington, D.C. How's that? So, I mean, well, look, this is interesting to me. I think you look at healthcare, which is still, folks are, very involved in an ideological battle to try to repeal what's been the law for 3 years and something we had a presidential election about, and, should be resolved by now, and it's not. Whereas in Washington State, we had a bipartisan eventual embrace of Medicaid expansion and the ability to move forward. And I think it's an interesting fact. I think about 7 states now that have Republican governors have embraced Medicaid expansion and have at least tacitly accepted this evolution forward. And I think that's interesting because I think states are where real people live, with real problems that have to have real solutions and real balanced budgets. And so in states, you've had much more bipartisan acceptance of healthcare reform and embrace of that in many, many places, including our state. And I think that's because states are the place where real people live and we have to have real solutions. And what has happened in Washington, D.C. is more of an ideological contest where folks who still ideologically have believe that healthcare reform, that federal participation in this is somehow ideologically verboten and unacceptable and un-American. And it's a refrain that happened every time we had some progress. It happened in Social Security. It happened in Medicare. The difference is that, 3 years after Medicare was adopted, Strom Thurmond, didn't try to default on the federal debt as a resolution. We had a resolution, we moved on, and so I think that's been the difference. And I'm happy that we've embraced it here in our state. And it wasn't just, again, it's not just a healthcare issue. This helped our state budget, Republicans and Democrats, $300 million. It's the only reason we were able to put $1 billion into the K-12 system was because of Obamacare, because it infused an additional $300 million into our state budget. So there's a direct connection between healthcare reform and our K-12 budget as well.
Well, the governing we started it last year. We started a series on generations where we were looking at, it's not just aging and boomers, it's millennials, it's where are we really going, as Dr. Carson was saying in general. And I don't think what people realize is that it touches every area of government, from service delivery to transportation, education, everything that you do, and the retirement volunteer piece that you talked about as well. But from a government standpoint, can you talk a little bit about the complexity of an issue like aging when you're looking at public policy? And then the fight for priorities of other things that sometimes take the forefront. And what do you think that government can really do on this issue despite all those other things going on?
I guess I would say it is that I actually don't look at this as a fight on issues of aging or things that we do when we're middle age or things when we are young. I mean, there are a lot more fights between East and West or urban rural or this group and that group. There are fights in what you might consider a zero-sum game. But in this one, on age-based services, I don't sense that because all of us are young once, almost all of us are middle-aged once, and if we're semi-lucky, all of us are going to be senior citizens. So this is not a debate between people or geographic interests or what we do, because we're all in the same boat on this. So I actually don't think of this as a contest, because we're all in the same lineage at different points in our life stages. So we're all in this boat together. That's how I look at it.
I know that you've got a big day ahead of you, but I wanted you to just talk briefly about what are your ideas and thoughts on aging well?
I hope to learn how to do that. I'm trying to do that on a daily basis. That's a pretty philosophical question. I guess I'm excited about aging because I see such opportunities in aging. Trudy and I visited a woman I hadn't seen for probably, 45 years to 50 years, who was a good friend of my parents. My dad started his teaching career in Tenino, Washington. when he wasn't cleaning out the fermentation tanks in the Liberty Brewery. That was his night job. And they were friends with a couple named Arnie and Tinker Miller, who were also educators in Tenino. And I had seen this woman for 45, 50 years, and I went down, we were at the Tenino Farmers Market, and I said, let's go find Tinker Miller. So Trudy and I asked around town, and we found Tinker Miller. And we went and visited her, and she's, like in her mid-80s now, walked in totally announced. She said, Jay, glad to see you. Have you stopped beating up your brother with that fire iron poker you used to beat him up with? I said, yeah. And I stopped, and we had the most delightful conversation of a person who is so sharp, who has this beautiful garden, who was making these incredibly gorgeous, quilts and things she was making. Look, I want to be 86 and be that sharp and healthy and with it and enjoying her grandkids. So I'm excited about getting older every day, one day at a time.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much.